I'm Brittany Wilkins, and this is Black History. Before we get into today's episode, I want to shout out a piece of fan mail I received. This is from a listener in Cincinnati. It reads, "I love this podcast because this sister is telling the real truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. Much love." Cincinnati, I see you, and thank you for that. In unveiling history not commonly known or taught, it does require us to have uncomfortable conversations and really tell it like it is. And being transparent as we examine history beyond the simplified narratives and beyond the trauma of slavery and confront the deeper systems, tensions, and realities really shaping the Black experience across the world. So here's a question for you. How does storytelling play in preserving history? What role does storytelling play in preserving history? This was the question I found myself asking after attending the Indiana Black Expo Film Festival. It was part of the organization's annual summer celebration, and the theme this year was Beyond the Frame, Black Voices Amplified, and it invited audience to really experience Black history and culture through documentary and narrative film. And over the course of the day, 6 feature films explored different dimensions of the Black experience, rooted in culture, resilience, creativity, and truth. Each story really offered a unique perspective, yet together they demonstrated the power of film to preserve history, amplify voices, and inspire meaningful conversations. 2 documentaries, however, stayed with me long after the film festival ended. 1 Month Isn't Enough, and the second, Getting Wins. Although different in subject matter, both films challenged me to think differently about historical awareness. One encouraged me to reflect on the stories we remember. The other reminded me that history continues to shape the present. 1 Month Isn't Enough, expanding the story of Black Hoosiers, is one of the most thought-provoking documentaries of the film festival. And it was a powerful exploration of the rich yet often overlooked legacy of Black Hoosiers living in the state. The documentary demonstrates the Black history in Indiana extends far beyond the confines of February. It was through the story of civic leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and everyday pioneers, illustrating how African Americans have helped shape Indiana's identity while revealing a history rooted not only in struggle and resistance, but also in community, innovation, and enduring impact. And rather than simply presenting historical events, the documentary, it challenged viewers with 3 powerful questions. The first question was, where did you come from? What did your people accomplish? And what contributions have your people made to the world? At first glance, these questions seem deeply personal, but throughout the documentary, however, they became a framework for understanding the legacy of Black Hoosiers whose lives and accomplishments helped to, again, shape Indiana's history. The film shines a well-deserved spotlight on Madam C.J. Walker and the rich cultural legacy of Indiana Avenue. These stories represent entrepreneurship, resilience, innovation, and the determination of a community that flourished despite extraordinary barriers. They deserve to be preserved, celebrated, and shared with future generations. However, as I reflected on the documentary, I found myself asking a 4th question. What stories have we yet told? Madam C.J. Walker and Indiana Avenue are the most recognizable chapters of Indiana's Black history, but they should not become the boundaries of it. You see, how I see it, the lens I see it through is that across Indiana are countless untold stories of educators, veterans, scientists, entrepreneurs, artists, churches, neighborhoods, civic leaders, and everyday citizens whose contributions remain largely unknown. If there's one lesson I took away from 1 Month Isn't Enough, It is that historical awareness requires more than preserving the stories we already know. It also requires the curiosity to uncover the stories we have yet to tell. Black history is not a finished collection of well-known names and places. It truly is an ongoing journey of discovery. So where are you on your journey of enlightenment? The search of truth begins with knowledge of what you already know. I encourage you to take the historical awareness assessment to uncover the 6 dimensions of history. Link is in the show description. Now, the second film, called Getting Wins. While 1 month isn't enough, encouraged me to reflect on the past, Getting Wins reminded me that history is still unfolding. And so the documentary, it followed the work of the Southern Movement Committee, a grassroots organization rooted in Nashville, Tennessee, and it explores how residents are building collective power through community organizing, co-governance, and civic engagement. From initiatives like the Black Nashville Assembly to efforts focused on youth leadership and community safety. The film highlights how ordinary people are working together to really transform their neighborhoods and shape the future of the city. And then following the screening, it was a panel discussion featuring the film director Jordan Johnson and Erica Perry, the executive director of the Southern Movement Committee. And together they reflected on the documentary and the ongoing work of the organizing committees around priorities and collective action. And one aspect of the discussion that really resonated with me was how the legacy of the Black Panther Party continues to influence present-day organizing. Rather than treating the movement as a completed chapter in history, the conversation demonstrated its ideas continue to shape new generations really committed to serving their communities. For me, this documentary really represented Black history in motion. Too often we think of history as something that is confined to just museums, archives, monuments, and textbooks. Yet history is also found really in community meetings, neighborhood organizations, and the people working every day to improve the lives of those around them. So watching Getting Wins remind that today's organizations are not simply just studying history, they are becoming part of it. If 1 month isn't enough access to reflect on the legacies we inherit, Getting Wins challenge us to consider the legacies we're creating, and that is beyond the frame. And as I left the film festival, I kept returning to that theme, beyond the frame, Black voices amplified. For me, the theme extends beyond filmmaking. Historical awareness requires us to look beyond the frame, beyond the familiar names, beyond the stories we revisit every February, beyond the historical markers we've already visited, and beyond the narratives we are comfortable telling or have grown comfortable telling. The Indiana Black Film Festival reminded that storytelling does more than just preserve history. It develops historical awareness by introducing us to voices, communities, and experience that might otherwise remain unknown. I know it opened up a lot to me and things that I didn't know that were going on in the state of Indiana and in other communities around the world. And every documentary has the power to challenge assumptions, recover those overlooked narratives, and inspire us to continue asking better questions about the past and the present. You see, history isn't only something we inherit. It's something we continue to discover, preserve, and share. This has been another episode of Black Washed History. Thank you for listening.